Exactly 1 month ago, Brittany and I made somewhat of a spur-of-the-moment decision to quit our jobs. We were earning around $100,000 a year.
But we had quickly grown tired of what our lives were starting to look like and realized a couple of things. One, we weren't getting any younger. And two, this was probably the best time we would ever have to try and create the business we wanted to create.
So with a decent amount of cash saved up, we did just that. And for the past month, we have been 100% unemployed and on our own. So today we'll be talking about everything we've learned in that time period because, well, things look a little bit different than either of us had thought they would.
So for me, I was the one working a 9-to-5 type job and quit that.
I was more on the self-employed side of things in kind of two separate areas of business. I stopped pursuing those just because I wanted to pursue this a lot more than what I was doing. So now Brittany and I are pursuing something we've wanted to pursue together for a long time.
So because our work environments were so different, I'm going to go over lessons that I've learned going from a 9-to-5 to more of an entrepreneurial business type mindset. And Mike's going to talk more about working on his own, being self-employed, to now working together.
This first thing, however, it has been something that both of us have learned, and that is that not having a stable 9-to-5 income as something to rely on isn't nearly as bad as I at least initially thought it would be. Not having a reliable income has been a big fear for me, at least, for like 6 or 7 years. That's honestly one of the reasons that we decided to make this decision in the first place, with Brittany quitting and me totally just stopping pursuing the things that were making me money. However, if we weren't as prepared as we are now, I think this would be a different story. You know, a month ago when we started this, we had about $80,000 in cash in our savings account and about $60,000 in the stock market. If worst case scenario, we need to pull that out.
And having such a large buffer of cash in our savings account has given us some more breathing room and runway to where we can just keep our minds at ease and focus on what we're trying to accomplish. So the second one is more specific to me, and that is nobody's going to do anything for you. It's all up to you. And this is very obvious to think about and say out loud, but for me it was a huge struggle going from a 9-to-5 to trying to create something on my own and working on my own.
Not that she's totally on her own. I mean, give me a little bit of credit.
I know. No, I'm not. Going from a place where everything is laid out for you to one where nothing gets done unless you do it is quite the change, to say the least, for me. This was because there was so much structure in my 9-to-5 job. I had a place to go, a plan, a way to execute the plan, and a schedule to follow. Also in a 9-to-5, there's already a system in place versus when you're trying to create a business on your own, you have to come up with that system for yourself. And this is extremely difficult. So I felt very lost in how to do this, and I quickly lost my focus as well. It's taking time for me to adjust, but going through all this is definitely worth it, even though it's still very awkward for me.
So what Brittany just talked about relates a lot to what I'm about to talk about, and that is it takes working together. It's more difficult than I thought it was going to be, and that's no insult to Brittany. Working on this channel together was very difficult before because of Brittany's work schedule. She was just tired or otherwise just didn't feel like filming a lot of the time. But now it's still difficult,
but for different reasons.
And I feel that has a lot to do with the differences in the work schedules that we came from and communication. Brittany and I communicate pretty well in a lot of other areas of life, but we've never had to communicate on a deep level when it comes to growing a business, just because we've never tried to do that together before. And I guess the idea I had going into this was, because we communicate so well in other areas of life, we'll just communicate well in this area of life. Yeah. And that hasn't really been the case so far, just because Brittany thinks so much more differently than I do. Like, she's just so much more creative than I am, and I really admire her for that. I'm much more of a surface level creative person, where she's like 10 levels deep creative person. So it's just going to take a little bit of time and practice for us to kind of grow into and find that creative, communicative balance between the two of us. And speaking of creativity, that's a good segue into the next lesson that I have personally learned, and that is, with the exception of Brittany now having the energy to film videos, the most difficult parts of YouTube have pretty much remained the most difficult parts of YouTube. Yeah. And that just has to do with the type of creativity, at least in my opinion, that is involved with YouTube. And this type of creativity is one that I don't feel like I'm very gifted at. It's a type of creativity that, for example, if somebody were to give you a blank sheet of paper and ask you to draw a work of art on it, that's kind of what YouTube requires. But for me, I'm much better at manipulative creativity, like using something that already exists and being creative with that. YouTube is all about translating something that exists in your imagination into a video. And for me, like, I can do it, but it just takes a long time. Brittany's much better at this type of creativity than I am. So I guess in my mind, the assumption was going into this that my creativity level would just, go up a few notches, but that hasn't really been the case. I don't know why I thought that in the first place. Something else that's been difficult about YouTube is figuring out like the best videos to make, because there are so many options and really so much going on in the financial space right now. It's difficult for us to decide like what's going to give you guys the best value or the best education or entertainment, because at the end of the day, like we want to provide value. We want to be valuable, educational, entertaining, some mix of those three, and just otherwise provide good content. And it's difficult knowing what kind of video to make sometimes. All right, and the next lesson is that working for yourself requires just as much working on yourself and is more difficult than you may think it is.
So oftentimes when I look at someone who's successful, I see the end result of their success first, and I don't see all the hard work and sacrifice and everything they put in to get to where they are today. And because of this, I usually get really inspired and think it's a lot easier to do than it actually is. I've been feeling really overwhelmed by how difficult it is to work on your own. And I'm often unsure of how to move ahead just because I've never done this before. After some time, I realized if I want to be successful, I have to do some serious work on myself first. Basically, I needed to break all the things that were holding me back. So things like fear, lack of external motivation, which I had when I was at my 9-to-5 by all the structure I had, and otherwise just laziness. I've learned that not working on myself and trying to grow as a person is like having a lawn care business where you forget to take care of the lawnmowers. I've learned there's a balance to success in who we are and what we provide for other people. And you can't just focus on one or the other, you have to focus on both. And I've been able to see this a lot more after leaving my 9-to-5 job.
Next lesson we learned is that we should have just kept all of our money out of the stock market. Well, with the exception of our Roth IRAs. A year ago, our lives were on a completely different path than they are on now. Like a year ago, our path was like this, and now our path is like 1,000 miles in this direction. If we had known that we would be quitting our jobs and pursuing a business of our own, I think we just wouldn't have bought so much into the stock market over the last couple of years. That cash would have been much better suited for growing our business as opposed to losing half of its value in the stock market.
And if you want to see the video of our stock portfolio, we'll link it up here.
Okay, and the next lesson has to do with hope and despair. And I think these two things are something that anybody who has aspirations of accomplishing something in their life or like big goals they want to reach is battling between. Ever since Brittany and I have embarked on this journey, this internal conflict between hope and despair has become stronger. I have a lot of confidence in my ability to do what I'm very good at and control the variables that I can control. However, at the same time, I worry about the variables that I can't control outweighing and eventually overcoming the variables that I can, and then leading to failure. It's kind of like on one shoulder, there's a voice saying, Mike, stay focused, keep going, you got this. You have plenty of time, you have plenty of money to make this work. But then on the other shoulder is a voice saying, Mike, just cut your losses here, man. This isn't going to work. You don't have enough time. You don't have enough money. There's a large risk of wasting the next 2 to 3 years of your life and losing all your money. Do you really want to start all the way over for a third time and risk that embarrassment? That's literally what it looks like for me. I don't think there's a day that's gone by that I've not questioned if Brittany and I are making the right decision here in doing this. And I think I know where those thoughts on this shoulder are coming from. The thoughts of despair. I think those are coming from a place that desires familiarity, comfort, and security. And if you guys watched our video, our very first video announcing that we're doing this, like we talked about those things in detail. Those desires are exactly what led us to having such a mediocre life. So as of right now, we are pushing forward in the direction of hope.
Yes.
That we can do this, and we're really like going to do our best in making this work. We'll just have to deal with the negative voices. I think those will go away with the more success we see. So with all that being said, guys, we really hope this video was at least informative and kind of gives you a little bit of a glance at what going from a stable, comfortable income to being unemployed and having hardly any income at all looks like, and just kind of everything that's involved in it. If you did enjoy this video, please give it a huge thumbs up. It helps out tremendously.
And you can subscribe for more, and you can follow us on Instagram at It's Mike and Brit.
Yep. Thanks again for watching. We'll see you next time.
Bye.